Hello everyone and welcome to Carnivorous Plants Hub. Today we're going to be making some Venus flytrap soil that also works for other carnivorous plants. I'm excited to walk you through my entire process from start to finish. This might actually be the most excited I've ever been to release a video. I have a major announcement that goes along with this video being released. It's been a long time coming and it's something I'm so very excited for. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how I make my substrate for the majority of my carnivorous plants, including Venus flytraps, Sarracenia, Pinguicula, and Cephalotus. I'm going to show you what I use and how much of each ingredient that I use. Real quick though, before we get into the video, I'm going to share with you my big announcement. As of right now, coinciding with the release of this video, my store is open and ready to take orders for my premium carnivorous plant substrate mix. I've been talking about opening my own nursery for so long, this is a major step for me. I wanted to start with my premium home mix substrate. I want to make sure that I get everything well oiled and then add the products and plants as I learn more about this process and this business. It's just my wife and I, so we're starting slow. We both have full-time jobs and 3 full-time kids, so we don't want to get in over our heads before we really understand how to run a store with physical products. As of now, you can purchase the substrate that I'm going to be showing you how to make today. You can click the link in the description to head on over to the store and purchase, or you can purchase it directly from the YouTube video. My store has been integrated with my YouTube channel. You can click the store tab from my YouTube home screen, or you can see the products available under the description. As of right now, it's just the soil in various kits and sizes, but stay tuned, there's more coming. My goal of this video is to show you how to make the substrate, but also to give a level of transparency. I'm one of the few sellers out there right now that is willing to show you my exact process. You get to see what's going into the soil and how I make it. I'm a small business and my goal is to operate with transparency and integrity. I'm hoping this video helps you trust my business and my product. Okay, enough yapping, let's go ahead and actually get into making some substrate. Let's start by introducing the ingredients. The number one ingredient is peat moss. Make sure the peat moss you get is 100% pure sphagnum peat moss, nothing else. Do not get Miracle-Gro. This contains additives and fertilizer. Make sure it's always 100% peat moss with no additional ingredients. The next ingredient is perlite, and the same rules apply here. Avoid Miracle-Gro or any brand of perlite that has any additional ingredients. Perlite is great at helping keep the substrate aerated and helps it avoid clumping and breaking up. The last ingredient is crushed glass. This will be the harder ingredient for you to source yourself. You likely don't have access to larger quantities of crushed glass. I source mine in large quantities from a sandblasting company. It can be hard to find locally and is expensive to ship. You can use a silica sand here instead. Often people use pool filter sand that you can find at a local hardware store. The glass also helps the soil stay aerated and keeps it from clumping or breaking. Do not use regular play sand. This is often mixed with many different types of rocks. This can leach minerals into your substrate. Make sure the sand is silica based. Silica is inert and does not absorb any harmful minerals. Usually after a good rinse, silica is ready to be used. Make sure it's a minimum of a number 20 mesh size. Anything smaller than this does not really help. I actually prefer the mesh size to be even bigger, like a 16 or 18 mesh. The lower the number for the mesh size, the bigger the grains of sand or glass. You can look up charts that talk about mesh sizes online. The crushed glass that I use is an 18 mesh. If you are absolutely unable to get your hands on any type of sand or glass, it's okay to only use peat and perlite. It's not as effective and will need to be changed more often, but can be used in a pinch. Do not just use peat. Peat by itself will brick up and eventually not provide a good substrate for roots to grow in. With Venus flytraps and other carnivorous plants, you want to make sure that your substrate has almost no nutrients or minerals. Venus flytraps grow naturally in areas that contain low counts of minerals. If you have too much, the roots can burn and the plant can die. This is why we use 100% pure sphagnum peat moss, which typically has very low salt or mineral counts. Both perlite and crushed glass are inert, which means they don't absorb. After rinsing them off, they can't leach any harmful minerals or nutrients into the substrate. For my mix, I use however much peat that I need. I then have that amount for my perlite total. I then have my perlite total for my sand and glass total. For example, the soil I'm making today contains 15 quarts of peat moss, then 7.5 quarts of perlite, which is half the total amount of peat, then 4 quarts of glass, which is just a bit over half of the total perlite. Don't stress about being exact, just get close to this. If you don't have exactly half, your substrate will still work just fine. I measure all mine pretty exact now, mostly because I'm selling it. If you're making yours at home, just get it close to this. Don't spend too much time getting this exact. Real quick before we start mixing some substrate, if you're finding this video helpful, please make sure to pour some water on the like button and subscribe to my channel to help it grow. I've been talking about starting a carnivorous plant nursery on my channel for years. This so far is the biggest step in that direction. I would have never got this far without all your help and support. It means so much to me. Thank you again for supporting me and my small business. I'm so excited to move forward and bring you so much more great carnivorous plant content. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Let's go ahead and mix some dirt. The first thing I do is add the peat moss. One of the more important parts of my process is making sure I sift all the peat. I use a 1/2-inch mesh sifter and I use it to catch some of the bigger chunks and twigs. Pretty much all peat moss is going to come with some twigs and some larger clumps of peat moss. This helps get rid of the bigger chunks. Throughout this entire process, you'll see me picking out chunks and twigs. I like to get out as many as possible. They don't really hurt anything, they're just really annoying. I'm picking stuff out at almost every step of this process. The next ingredient that I add is perlite. I've already rinsed all the perlite, so I don't have any footage of that, but I just put it in a bucket and cover the top with a mesh bucket topper, and then rinse. Perlite floats, so you have to use the mesh topper to keep it in. Even after being rinsed, you can see that the perlite has a bit of a dust. This is why I like to rinse the perlite and crushed glass separately, then rinse the substrate again once it's all mixed. After adding the perlite, I move on to the crushed glass. I actually needed to rinse some fresh glass, so I can show you that process. I have a bucket that I've put some holes in the bottom of and then covered with some small mesh. This is so the bucket allows the water to pass through, but not the glass or the perlite. This is the same bucket that I used to rinse the perlite. Once I put the glass in the bucket, I take it outside and then rinse it with a garden hose. You can see the floating pieces of paper. I'm assuming that this is from the labels from the post-crushing of the glass. I skim all that off and rinse until the water is clear, as you can see here. Once it's clean, I scoop it in with the peat and the perlite. The glass is my rock star ingredient. Not only does it serve its purpose in making the substrate better, but it looks amazing when the sun hits it just right. It makes your substrate more than just the dirt your plant is in. It helps make it your plant's co-star. Stick around until the end so you can see some shots of it planted. The next thing that I do is I mix all the ingredients while they're still dry. But instead of giving you good footage of this, I decided to just show you a close-up of my elbow. I figured that was much more important than seeing the substrate mixing. I do all my mixing in a portable sink. It works perfect for what I need it for. The drain makes it super convenient and lets me do fairly large batches. Now that we're all mixed up, it's time to rinse. I only use distilled or pure filtered water. This water that I'm using here is filtered from a 0 water pitcher. It gets rid of any impurities. Normal water filters like a Brita do not work for this. It must be a 0 water pitcher. It gets rid of chlorine, minerals, and other crud that's in our tap water. You can also get distilled water by the gallon from big box stores. Reverse osmosis and rainwater are also great alternatives. The point here is that I'm rinsing out all the impurities from the mix. If your water contains minerals and chemicals, it's really not doing much. This will help get rid of any additional dissolved solids that might still be in the mix. It'll also help rinse away any excess perlite dust and anything else that's accumulated. This is a major step in my process and one that I'm extremely proud of. I haven't seen many other sellers rinsing their substrate before selling it. I definitely don't trust sellers from Amazon. This always needs to be rinsed before using. Even then, I have no idea where they're sourcing their ingredients or what goes into their mixes. The rinsing process is one of the things that makes my soil premium. If I buy substrate from any nursery or on Amazon, my first step 100% of the time is to rinse it a few times with good pure water. With my substrate, this won't be necessary. I'm showing you my rinsing process so you don't feel the need to rinse it yourself. And just like when the substrate was dry, I figured it was really important for you to watch my elbow while I hand mix the watered down substrate. I like to mix it by hand so that I can not only mix it, but also break up any substrate that clumps up. Once I'm done hand mixing, I pull the plug in the sink and then drain the water. Here's my bucket with the mesh topper. This mesh topper will catch any substrate that goes down the drain, but keeps the water in the bucket. All this water is recycled and used in our garden. It keeps our raspberries, blackberries, and lilies watered. We try hard not to waste any water in this process. The only part where some water is wasted is rinsing the perlite in the glass. Neither process takes long though, and not much water goes unused. I let it drain like this for about 15 minutes, then clear the drain and allow it to drain for another 15 to 30 minutes or so. This allows me to get out as much excess water as possible. I usually squish the sides down so it pushes the water out. You can see how much water this peat moss absorbs. This is what makes it such a good substrate for your Venus flytraps and other carnivorous plants. I then literally just go ahead and rinse and repeat. I pour another couple of gallons of distilled water, mix it all up, break up the clumps, and then drain. A batch this size, I use about 6 gallons of pure or distilled water to rinse out any excess crud that you don't want in your substrate. Every drop of that water drains through the sink, gets reused. Once the second round of rinsing is done, I grab the bucket and the top mesh and put the excess soil that crept through the drain back into the batch. After it's sat like this for about another 30 minutes or so, allowing as much water as possible to drain, it's time to scoop it from the sink and back into the bucket. Once it's in the bucket, I press down the substrate. I allow the bucket to drain a few hours, allowing as much excess water to drain out as possible. Now technically it's ready to go. I can now take this over to my plants and start the repotting process. However, I'm also making the substrate to sell, and in order to sell it, I must dry it and bag it. I put the substrate in a large bin and use a heater with a fan to dry it out over the next 48 hours. Here's what it looks like when it dries out. The reason that this carnivorous plant substrate mix is so effective is it absorbs the water and keeps the substrate below the surface wet for long periods of time. Venus flytraps and many other carnivorous plants' roots need access to water all the time. However, oftentimes, if there's too much moisture at the crown of the plant, they can rot and eventually die. This mix keeps wet down by the roots for longer periods of the time. It allows water to drain, but absorbs enough to keep it wet. The perlite and glass keep the substrate well aerated and keeps it light and fluffy for years to come. This allows the roots to stretch out and grow deep, which is always best for big, strong Venus flytraps and other carnivorous plants. These ingredients and this process are literally the exact same that I used early spring to repot all my Venus flytraps in Sarracenia. I have a great video showing you this exact process. It's all done with a substrate made with the exact ingredients and process I've shown you today. I'm extremely proud of this mix. I've been testing out different ingredients and amounts of each ingredient for years. This is where I've landed. This is the mix that I've seen the best results with. I'm not only proud that I've developed this mix, but I'm also proud to show you my process and to offer it for sale now. In my personal opinion, it's the best mix that you can find on the market right now. The quality ingredients, the hand mixing, and rinsing, combined with the incredible looking glass, I just haven't seen any other substrates that can compete. I do admit you can find lower quality substrates a bit cheaper, but it won't be the premium quality of this mix. I also would never use any other mix without rinsing it first. My substrate comes completely pre-rinsed and ready to go. I think that you will agree about the quality of the substrate once you purchase it and see your plants potted up. The way the glass hits the sun just makes the substrate pop. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for supporting my small business. It truly means more to me than you could possibly imagine. Starting up my own nursery has always been my goal, and this is another small step in that direction. Remember, this substrate is for sale now. You can see the link in my store in the description of this video. You can also access my store by clicking the store tab from the YouTube homepage, or you can browse the products that appear right below the description. Thank you so much for supporting me on this journey, and I can't wait to catch you in my next video. Bye.